All right, everybody, welcome back to the Family Movie Time podcast. I'm your host, Jeff M. Giordano. Today, we have Brian D. Lorenzo as my special guest. Today, we're going to talk about Be Kind, Rewind,
That's right.
directed by Michel Gondry. Um, Before we started rolling, um, Brian and I were talking about the VHS connected memories, and you mentioned Kim's video. Maybe we'll just start there from VHS, then we'll work our way to the movie from
Oh my God.
VHS because the movie involves VHS tapes, among other things.
This film was an ode to that, I thought, in a lot of ways.
You know, it makes me appreciate this kind of a movie because it is about, I would say, friendship. You can see it at any age. You know, I think it would be cool if families checked it out. It's funny and it does kind of like show you because like it is a video store that's trying to survive and they're like this
Mhm.
independent video store and um things get, you know, silly or ridiculous at times, but I think it all is trying to comment on the times they were living in and that moment, you know, what was happening and like how important like culture, film culture is, and everybody in their community realizes that, and then they try to, you know, contribute in some way.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember being in college when it came out. And it was a big deal that it was Michel Gondry film because of Eternal Sunshine a couple of years prior. Um, and I remember I think being in college just going like, oh my gosh, there's a new one, and he and then it was like about like making movies and had Jack Black in it. And a film like this starting off, you think maybe it would start with like a parody or something, but it starts off with like the story of Fats Waller, a jazz musician. So right off the bat, Gondry's kind of, keeping you off balance a little bit, or surprising or something.
The film, there is something to be said for the budget was $20 million.
Just a lot.
The box office almost 31 million.
Okay, it made money.
So it did make more than its budget and then some.
Yeah, that's not
Um,
bad.
Ellen Kuras, I want to shout out to. Ellen Kuras was the cinematographer in the film on the film.
Yes,
And
incredible.
for those unfamiliar, um, Kuras has done narrative and documentary films, music videos, commercials. Um, you may have seen there's a 1992 movie called Swoon. Um, there's Postcards from America,
She did
Angela.
some Spike Lee.
Yeah, Angela, 1995, directed by Rebecca Miller. Then eventually Bamboozled, 2000, directed by Spike Lee. Um, Quite a few films. So getting to Michel Gondry, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Such a
Yes,
brilliant film.
yeah.
But should we set it up? I guess I don't know if we've set up the story, but all right. Jack Black, we'll say Nassim Bey, Mos Def, plays a video clerk in Danny Glover's video store in Passaic, New Jersey, and
Jack Black is Jerry. The character Jerry, and Yasiin Bey is Mike.
is Mike. So yeah, Jerry and Mike, and they're just kind of goofball, buddies. I don't even know what Jerry does. Jerry works at like the power plant or something down the street, and he's your classic Jack Black character. He's just kind of up to shenanigans, and then one day Jack Black magnetizes himself, so he becomes like a walking magnetic, you know, force, and It's funny too because you'd have to know this about VHS tapes to get this point in the plot, but you'd kind of need to know that you could erase a VHS tape by magnetizing it, I think, right? And you can wipe it, so that like Jack Black inadvertently magnetizes the entire video store and erases all of their library of films. And yeah, and then I don't know, Jeff, do you want to set up the second half? Because that's probably the more entertaining part. But
So basically, trying not to spoil it, they both need to, Jerry and Mike, they need to find a way to like have movies to rent. So they decide to reenact the movies and record such reenactments and remakes and remade scenes, and then have them available for people to rent from their video store. But yeah, so they have to go out and like, and they do movies like
Ghostbusters,
Ghostbusters, you know,
um,
a ton of stuff that's like, you know, hot, hot, hot sellers at the video store.
yeah, you could feel the 2007 or 2008ness with Rush Hour 2 as being like one of the ones that they take the time to remake, and not just Rush Hour, but Rush Hour 2, which probably was a huge film in that time period, or like a hot rental. Um, so pretty populist, mainstream films, but then the quirkiness is just in how they remake these, and I think that's where Michel Gondry, his inventiveness as a filmmaker really shines because the imagination. It's like lo-fi, um, you know, paper and you know paper and styrofoam and but like if you saw that, it'd be like if you saw that now as like a YouTube clip, it'd be kind of like a cute little like endearing thing. But they if you appreciate filmmaking and that sort of thing, it's a really endearing. It's a really endearing film, and they parody a lot of films. I think the middle of the movie, they kind of show you like, oh, half a dozen, 10 different films that they swede,
And the
which is
Swede, yeah, they use
yeah.
that word because in Sweden, apparently, um, the government stance on file sharing basically is like it's more relaxed, and they, treat it more as a form of free speech and a right of consumers.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure where that stands at this moment, but at least
Yeah.
at that time when they made the film, that's one of the thoughts, is that they got it from Sweden, but then from other sources, it says that the term was actually coined by Michel Gondry in the script, where Jerry needs to justify an exorbitant fee. And he says that because it is a very rare type of video which needs to be imported from Sweden because it's a far away, expensive country.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's like probably a combination, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of works, and then throughout the film, they're sweeting, they've got to save the video store. It's like the classic. They're coming to bulldoze, tear down the video store. So Jerry and Mike, they need to figure out a way to save the video store. So they just the two of them, and then eventually Melanie Diaz and some other characters. A lot of I think it was local Passaic, New Jersey people from the town were like, we'll be in your movie. And that was, I think that was the really endearing part, was just that like when you create a space for people to like join and participate and be a part of something, even if it's as silly as like pretending to be like in Ghostbusters, like people are down, and yeah, it just kind of has that sort of like hopeful community sort of feeling of like, this is very silly, but it's also there's something deeper there too.
In the movie, the playfulness of like recreating these things, because I think it does have the layer of like it is fun. It's probably also therapeutic to do that, and then you do get tired. It is, kind of like exercise as well, or
It should have been
some
exhausting, yeah.
kind of like theater workshop thing or whatever. So it,
Yeah,
I think it's all very um it's entertaining. It is PG-13. Uh,
yeah,
I want to give a shout out to the rest of the cast: Mia
yeah.
Farrow,
Yeah,
uh,
Farrell.
Miss Fallowitz, Danny Glover, as Mr. Fletcher. You mentioned Melanie Diaz as Alma, um, Chandler Parker, Craig, R.J. Smith, Manny, Quentin Aaron, Q, Marcus Carl Franklin, Kid One. um, you have, you know, talented cast. Michel Gondry, I think I could tell he draws from silent cinema. He draws from so much of the experimentation and the comedy and to the way to do comedy, the way to do like, the emotional stuff too, and where you
Yeah,
do care about these characters, even though um like Jack Black's character has kind of a, I don't know, like he's like bumbling and he's more, you know, he's not as he doesn't have the gracefulness maybe as the other characters sometimes, but that is part of the humor.
yeah, yeah. I mean, one of my wife's favorite films is School of Rock, um, which I think this is post School of Rock, but he was very much in his Jack Black persona at that point. But really funny. I mean, just he's just like silly, goofy Jack Black, And if you like that, then you're gonna, have a good time. Um, but I think if you also are a fan of Michel Gondry, it's definitely you should see it.
He and he was in a band called Wee Wee, Michel Gondry, and then he would make music videos for the band. I think he was the drummer in the band. So anyway, he
Oh
went on
right, a musician.
he went on to direct Lenny Kravitz, the Believe music video. He did stuff with Terrence Trent D'Arby, She Kissed Me, the music video, Rashid Taha, Bjork,
White Stripes, yeah.
Belinda Carlisle, Donald Fagen of what, Steely Dan. You got Sinead O'Connor. You got another Bjork, Army of Me. You got, so eventually Nene Cherry, Daft Punk, Foo Fighters, Everlong, directed Everlong, the music
Great
video.
video, yeah.
Did Wyclef Jean, more Bjork, then Radiohead, then Chemical Brothers, then the White Stripes, Fell in Love with a Girl, Dead Leaves and the Dirty
Postman.
Crown, White Stripes, Kylie Minogue, Come Into My World. Anyway, so I mean, so many awesome music videos, and then Eternal Sunshine,
Yeah.
2004, and then Dave Chappelle's Block Party, 2005.
Okay, that was right. And I think maybe something from that project, something with like I think like filming in a neighborhood, he said sort of inspired him. Like,
Yes,
um,
for Be Kind Rewind, the film in a Block Party. Yes,
oh, and
definitely.
I think at one point maybe Dave Chappelle was considered for um, Most Def's role,
Ah,
which would have changed the film, but Most Def did a great job. So, um, but yeah, it's interesting how those projects kind of impacted each other, and I don't know, he's just so interesting. I think he really kind of leads with what inspires him, as
Yeah, and
as
it
a
seems
filmmaker and an artist.
like, you know, almost like a jazz musician riffing off the music video style and actually being able to, craft a intelligent, entertaining, thoughtful, deep kind of, emotionally too
Yeah.
story. Um, so then, yeah, 2005 Block Party. Then you had Science Asleep, 2006. Then you had another Bjork music video. Then
That's good.
you 2007 Declare Independence by Bjork. Then you had 2008 Be Kind Rewind.
I think at this point, I don't know if Michel Gondry is ever going to be directing, Marvel movies. I think he's just going to be doing what he wants to do, and he's great at what he does, and he has his own. There's just you're watching a Michel Gondry film, when you're watching it, like
Yeah,
just his own style. It's all over this film too. It's like maybe even his most Michel Gondryist project in terms of just like all the little recreations of stuff and
he did do. There's something to be said for the Green Hornet, which maybe would be maybe is that like a super Hollywood movie for him, or was that still at the level of this movie? Do you think
it
offhand?
I think it was trying to be, and I think that was another flop.
And I think it was
Um,
in like 3D too somehow. Then some of the releases were 3D.
I remember Seth Rogen was in it, and you know, I probably, had similar high hopes for that too, but I don't think that project turned out as well.
So yeah, you said Seth Rogen, then Jay Chow, Christoph Waltz, Cameron Diaz, Tom Wilkinson, David Harbour, uh, Jill Remes. I mean, it's got a cool cast. I don't think I've seen that one. That is a PG-13 Green Hornet.
Mm.
I haven't seen 2015 Microbe and Gasoline. It's rated R. Um,
Um,
I haven't seen that one. Moon Indigo 2013.
was that in French? That film was that a French film?
I think probably, I think so. Yeah, because the trailers, yeah, I could tell.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
know he's gone back and forth and just made some films in French and
I hope he makes, if he listens to this episode, I hope he makes
yeah,
a
he's been
documentary
waiting for us to.
a documentary about Bjork.
Oh,
Um,
that'd be cool.
I have some behind the scenes tidbits that I can mention.
Yeah,
So with Make and Be Kind Rewind, Michel Gondry insisted on using the locals of Passaic, New Jersey. That's where the film was shot.
yeah. I wonder what what about Passaic, New Jersey? Because I looked up. I have to confess, you're the music guy. I didn't know much about Fats Waller. I guess he was a real musician, but not because in the film they Danny Glover's character makes a big deal out of saying that Fats Waller grew up in Passaic, New Jersey, and then he sort of confesses at the end of the film that that's not true, or that he, was born in Harlem. Um, so I actually have no idea what the connection is between Passaic, New Jersey, and Fats Waller, besides Michel Gondry wanted to put those two things together.
Well, Pat Waller was born in New York City,
Right?
which
You're
must
on his Wikipedia too. Yeah.
so um
There's no Passaic in his.
I don't know if he spent any time there. I would guess, I would make an imaginative guess that Fats Waller's maybe a personal favorite of Michel Gondry as far as the music and
Hmm.
all the collaborations. Um,
Yeah,
I mean, maybe the piano playing of Fats Waller and
yeah,
trying to see So he studied piano with James P. Johnson, and first recording solo pianos in 1923. He worked in the review Hot Chocolates in the late 1920s as a composer, along with
Mm,
Duke Ellington. He is one of the most prolific composers in jazz.
wow.
And his best songs are probably Ain't Misbehavin', Honeysuckle Rose, Black and Blue, Blue Turn Gray Over You, Keeping Out of Mischief Now. He formed his own group in 1934, Fats Waller and his Rhythm, and recorded many records for RCA Victor. Two of
Wow.
his
Yeah.
most notable film appearances were in Stormy Weather 1943 and King of Burlesque 1936. He died in 1943 on a train during a trip to California. He was 39 years old.
Oh, wow.
And that was a mini biography by Eric Nessich on IMDb, just to give credit where credit is due.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
And I guess it's like they call it Born in Passaic is the biopic and the only non-Swedish production that they collaborate on, and make a film about.
That's
And
right.
it's and they have it playing on in the video store window. It actually featured the locals watching the movie they had worked long and hard on for the first time. Um,
Oh,
so it's worth noting King Kong was one of the Swedish films, and Be Kind Rewind and Jack
yeah.
Black would go on to star in a remake of King Kong in 2005.
Pretty cool. Yeah. But
Um,
yeah.
it says that the movie's DVD cover has yellow tape with Sweden written on the tape in black marker, making it look just like the covers of the VHS tapes in the movie.
Yeah.
Um, Sigourney Weaver also appeared in Ghostbusters, which was the first film to be Sweded.
Right. It's funny that she's in the movie, but
Yeah, you look at VHS. We keep going. That's like the core of this VHS video rental store,
yeah.
and it's somebody's business, and they're trying to support themselves and survive, and still be doing something they're passionate about and they care about, and like look forward to their job. So they're really trying to, like, everybody's trying to save this local store. Um, the heart of it is cinema and like them reenacting the scenes. So I would just hope if like families watch this, that maybe it inspires people to make like a film, and I don't know, something that you can work on with, a level of like depth, or you give it some kind of personal, you make it about yourself. If that's the only story, you still have your own life experience, and like the way maybe, you know, you just kind of explore that. I think there's something to be said for experimentation, because these Swedish versions of the movies they make, it's almost like they're little kind of experimental, like do it yourself Ghostbusters, and like building the costume, even if it's cardboard and, real, just whatever is in your immediate environment kind of thing. It's in
Yeah.
the spirit of filmmaking, I think, collaborating too. I think the movie's also about like kind of honoring the like collaboration between people working on something, having fun. Um, and Passaic, New Jersey, for whatever reason, it was cool that I think it's cool that they included the locals.
From what I gather, if you watch like kind of newer music videos, even some films, have you noticed that some recent films have been doing the 4:3 aspect ratio? So there's these little kind of like hallmarks of VHS that still live on and are being uh, co-opted now, in other forms. And yeah, I think kids do think it's cool. I mean, it's glitchy, it's lo-fi, it's we're so used to everything being perfectly smooth resolution, you know, we just everything. I mean, this Zoom call, the resolution of the Zoom call is better than cameras in the 90s. So people like a little lo-fi, and um, VHS certainly has that. And you put it on your shelf. You look at it, you hold it. Um, yeah, I think it's pretty rad. But
I
in
think
all
that
those things,
maybe the deeper philosophical thing is like how we experience movies. It's like when you look at
yeah.
the span of, a lifetime, and it's like, well, to try to see something in the theater, I think that's a cool experience. And then maybe it is just watching movies with other people, and you whatever format you can get.
Um, Yeah, and I think it's kind of an interesting commentary too on where we're at now because um like you'd reached out about this film, about talking about this film, and the only place I could find it was on Prime. You know, this is like a $20 million Jack Black film. Like, why is it not on Netflix or somewhere else, which speaks to you know, the whole state of where we're at, film, home video, we were talking about like the homemade sort of quality to it, and it reminded me of this story I heard recently about a high school play. Because like my older brother did a lot of theater, and like in high schools you can do like Grease and you can do 42nd Street and stuff like that. But in New York, at least in New York, they have like a non-compete clause that like if a show is on Broadway, the high school can't do it. And it's so silly because it's like who's gonna go, who's taking business away from Broadway to go see a high school play. But it is sort of like something about high school plays and sort of what Be Kind Rewind did. There was a school that did they went totally left field. They did Alien, the Ridley Scott film, as a high school play, and they had the alien as like a cardboard cutout, and a film or a taping of it went viral online, and I think Ridley Scott saw it. So I don't know. It reminded me of Be Kind Rewind because it was like, it's just like these kids playing around, but very focused and dedicated, and the alien looked cool. It was like a cool little thing they built themselves out of like paper, and like Ridley Scott like dug it, so something about that kind of reminded me of Be Kind Rewind.
Wow, I never heard of that. Thanks for mentioning that.
Try
Wow.
to I'll link the article. I'll try to find it after
Yeah.
after this goes up.
Yeah, there's I think there's some examples in the independent history of cinema. Like, wasn't there a famous example of somebody making like an Indiana Jones, like a homemade?
Yes.
I don't think I ever saw that one. I don't remember the title, but I something about Indiana Jones, and like a bunch of kids remade it. I don't want to leave out the Turkish remakes of several like American films, from Superman to E.T. to The Exorcist to, oh man, there's so many. I
Oh, that's cool. I've never
Have you
seen
seen
those.
any of them?
No, no.
I will say that there's I will maybe single out. I haven't seen all of them, but they did one that was inspired. I'll use the word inspired. They did a film that was inspired by E.T. called Hamadi, or Hamodi might be the correct pronunciation. Hamodi. So it's E.T. and definitely low budget.
It also kind of reminds me of fan fiction a little bit too. A friend of mine was involved for a couple of years with Batman fan fiction, and I mean, they were going out and spending like thousands of dollars to do these. They just they wanted to make Batman. They wanted to go out. They wanted to, they wanted to do Batman, and I think some of them are still up on YouTube. But that it's a risk because then you might get pulled down. You might never get released. But there's that passion. The passion for the story is there. I think it is. I think it's a. I don't think it's like trying to rip off anything. I mean, it is kind of, I guess you could call it a rip off, but I like to think that these people are, they're just they love the movie so much that they're putting it all out there.
Yeah, it reminds me too of, you have examples in cinema of a director makes a film, then remakes the movie years later.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
back to the immediate example I could think of, Abel Gance. So 1919, French silent movie, J'accuse. And it's like the horrors of World War One. They started working on it in 1918. Some of the scenes were filmed on real battlefields.
Wow.
Pretty strong depiction at that time of like wartime suffering,
Oh
and
wow.
it was an international success. So that kind of you know helped Gans to be one of the most important directors, at least in Europe at that time. So my point is, years later, um, years later, he remade the film in 1938. So 1919, the first one,
Oh wow.
1938, the second one.
That's a big jump.
Called it J'accuse, same thing. This time with sound, and it it looks ahead to the basically imminent outbreak of World War II. Uh,
Wow. There was one joke um that was a little edgy. Now, have you seen it? Did you watch it recently?
it's been a little while. I saw it like a month ago.
Yeah, I caught something that I think wouldn't it would have been removed today. But there was a scene, I think, when they were doing one of the parodies of or Swedes of like Boys in the Hood or something. Jack Black, for like a second, comes out like with his face painted, like almost like blackface, and then
Oh,
and then Mos Def is like, no, and he tells Jack Black like bad,
oh yeah,
and I I was like, wow, that would have been removed today. That's like the one thing, maybe that was more being used as like a joke in 2008, but I was like, oh, interesting. That one popped at me as particularly like, you know, of its time because I don't think they would do that joke now.
yeah, yeah, and like we were saying, silent movies.
Right?
We'll see examples of that. Even the stars. I mean, Buster Keaton. There's I creeped up, and there's a movie called College, I think, where
Yeah.
there's a scene like that with him, and it it does remind me too of Alan Kuris, who cinematographer for this film,
Yeah.
cinematographer for Bamboozled, Spike Lee film
Good point. Yeah.
from 2000, which explores this topic.
Yeah.
So yeah, to your example, that's an interesting moment. Maybe he's trying to say like, yeah, man, like there
Too
are
too
there are lines, and you gotta work within at least some kind of you know respectful way. That's yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I would say that the film, the laugh line is basically Jack Black going too far with it, and Mos Def like just telling everyone basically telling him no, that was bad, that was wrong, and then they quickly move on to the next thing. But it just struck me as I jotted it down because I was like, oh, this is a joke that maybe played in 2008, sort of around the same time as Tropic Thunder, and Robert Downey Jr. making doing a similar thing with it with that film. That just doesn't work. Doesn't work now. But and maybe it didn't work back then either. But they they went for it, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know where it lands. I think as like a whole, it's still a very wholesome film. I think besides that one joke, the rest of the film is perfectly suitable for modern audiences. But um, I think yeah, it just depends too. I mean, it's a very heavy Jack Black vehicle, so if you're a fan of Jack Black, I would also recommend it.
But yeah, I'll have to get over to New York and do some special episodes for the podcast at some point.
Yeah, we'll do one in the basement of Kim's video.
Yes.
You would get a kick out of it because they got some interesting some interesting somebody curates the VHS tapes. I mean,
Oh
it's
wow.
a whole VHS library.
Amazing. And I want to give a shout out to public libraries because that's where I would actually rent VHS tapes in college to watch the film. I remember watching like old Italian movies and um, films from all over the world, Japanese films, like
Yeah.
classic American films. Because at that, it was like you could only really get them there, and there's certain tapes they couldn't check them out of the library, so you got to watch it in this little room on a little monitor and with headphones. Like that's it. That's what
Oh
you
wow!
get.
So you're going to the library, listen for 2 hours, sitting down, and
Yeah.
wow, that's
So
cool. Yeah.
I'll let you enjoy the rest of your day there.
No, thank. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks, Brian. Well, we'll be in touch, and I appreciate
Yeah,
your time. It was epic talking about this movie. Have to have you on again.
absolutely. Anytime.
Take good care.
You too, Jeff. Take care. Thanks,
Peace.
everyone.